The boardroom was silent, save for the rhythmic ticking of the antique clock hanging above us. I sat calmly at the long glass table, fingers loosely intertwined, though inside, my stomach churned with unease. I had just spent the past year rescuing this company from collapse, bringing it back from the edge, and now I was being summoned for a special recognition meeting. I should have sensed something was off the moment I saw Bryce already in the room, casually slouched in the chair next to mine. He was spinning a pen like he hadn't spent the last year doing the bare minimum. No late nights, no weekend pushes, no breakthroughs. Just showing up half aware and claiming credit wherever he could. "Thank you both for coming," said Mr. Lawson, our CEO, standing at the head of the table. His smile was polite, but hollow. "Mandy," he said, turning to me, "we all know what an incredible asset you've been during this challenging transition." I gave a small nod, keeping composed. "You took a broken system," he continued, "and turned it into something smarter, faster, scalable. That AI logistics software you built has completely revolutionized our workflow. We've had a record-breaking quarter. Profits up 300%. That's no small feat." "Thank you," I replied. It wasn't false modesty. I knew what I'd done. The sleepless nights, fixing bugs at 3 a.m., reviving crashed servers. I had held this company together by sheer willpower. Then Lawson's attention shifted. "And Bryce," he said with a chuckle, "we've seen your leadership potential really begin to shine." My smile stiffened. Leadership potential? This was the guy who once confused a database with a spreadsheet. Yet Lawson pressed on. "Starting next week, Bryce will step into the role of Director of AI Operations." At first, the words didn't land. Director of my department, my team, my project. I kept my tone low but steady. "You're giving the promotion to Bryce?" Lawson lifted a hand, anticipating the objection. "Mandy, your brilliance is unquestioned, but leadership? That's about more than ideas. It's about image, charisma, presence. We need someone who can represent us to our investors." "In other words," I said, finishing for him, "someone who looks the part." He didn't deny it, just shrugged. "Business is perception." From his chair, Bryce finally straightened, grinning. "No hard feelings, Mandy. I'll still need your genius. You can stick to the tech stuff, yeah?" And then it happened. Lawson reached into his blazer, pulled out his wallet, and tossed a crumpled $50 bill onto the table. "For your hard work," he said. "Consider it a token of thanks." The world tilted slightly. $50 for developing the AI system that pulled this company from the brink and pushed it into a $200 million valuation. I looked at the bill, then at Lawson, then at Bryce, who was already texting under the table, probably bragging to some VC contact or golf buddy. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I simply picked up the bill, folded it neatly, and slid it into my pocket. "Thank you," I said softly. Lawson blinked. "You're not upset?" I smiled. "Not at all. I'm just excusing myself." And then I stood up, calm, controlled. My heels clicked against the tile floor as I walked out of the room. No slamming doors, no dramatic scene. Because while they thought I'd walk away humiliated, they had no idea I was already planning something bigger. Something that would make them regret ever handing me that $50 bill. The next morning, I arrived at the office at exactly 7:45 a.m., 15 minutes earlier than usual. "Didn't expect to see you today, Mandy," said the front desk guard with a surprised nod. I gave him a small smile. "Just a habit, I guess." But that wasn't the truth. I needed to see everything. One last time. The system I had built, the team I had mentored, the department I had molded from nothing. Because when something is about to fall apart, you study the fault lines before it crumbles. In the elevator, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirrored wall. Calm face, sharp eyes, neatly tied hair. You'd never guess I'd just been handed a $50 insult for building an empire. The doors opened to the third floor. My floor, or what used to be mine. My office door stood open, boxes lined the wall, my name scribbled hastily across them. And behind my desk, with his feet kicked up like he owned the place, sat Bryce. He didn't even try to act subtle. A coffee mug with his name already sat beside my monitor, the same monitor I bought with my own money because IT wouldn't approve upgrades. "Oh, hey," he said lazily. "Didn't think you'd come in." I walked in slowly, confidently, like nothing had changed, like I still belonged. For a brief moment, I saw something flash in his eyes. Hesitation. "I just came to grab my stuff," I said, nodding toward the boxes. "Right, of course," he coughed. "And hey, no hard feelings, okay? You're still on the team. Just a new role now." "A new role?" I repeated, raising a brow. "Yeah, Lawson said you'd be handling a special project. Something about modernizing support systems. Should be fun. Bit of back-end cleanup and database stuff." Back-end cleanup? They were reassigning me, the architect of their entire AI platform, to fix printer queues and broken spreadsheets. "Sounds perfect," I replied, voice dry. He didn't even register the sarcasm. As I carried the boxes down the hallway, coworkers glanced over, then looked away. No one said anything. No one stopped me. It was wild how fast people forget the one who held up the ceiling when the roof caved in. The support department was tucked into a forgotten corner of the building, like a junk drawer you shove away and hope never to open. A wobbly chair, a flickering screen, a tangle of dusty wires. That was my new domain. I sat down slowly, took in the mess. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was thinking. Because what no one here knew, not Bryce, not Lawson, not even IT, was that the AI platform I developed, the company only had the base version. The real system, the advanced engine with predictive modeling, dynamic learning, and live route optimization, lived elsewhere, encrypted, private, on a secure server only I could access. The software they had was good, but the version I held, game-changing. So I sat quietly while Bryce delivered some fluff-filled speech about new leadership and forward momentum. I jotted a few things down. Not code, but a plan. By noon, my mind was made up. They didn't want me here. Fine. I wouldn't fight, I wouldn't beg. But I wasn't going to sit by while they profited off what I built. They wanted a leader? I'd show them one, just not in their building. That afternoon, I sent 3 quiet messages. Not emotional rants, no dramatic declarations, just concise, intentional invitations. One to Elena, our former chief marketing officer, pushed out after tripling conversions, all because her budget got slashed. One to Jason, ex-infrastructure lead, who walked after Bryce, nearly wiped 6 months of analytics trying to optimize a server. And one to Priya, the only other engineer who ever truly understood the full depth of my code and its potential. None of them responded right away, but I knew they would, because just like me, they weren't failures. They were underestimated, misplaced, silenced. We weren't victims. We were builders, miscast as background characters in someone else's story. But that narrative was about to flip. That evening, I stared out the support room's narrow window. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, sprawling, indifferent, full of possibility. The company I had saved was about to start crumbling again. Only this time, I wouldn't be the one catching it, because I wasn't going to look back. I was building forward, and when I was done, they'd regret ever handing me a wrinkled $50 bill. 3 days later, all 3 replied. Elena's message came first. "Been waiting for this call. Just say where and when." Then Jason. "If this is what I think it is, I'm in." Finally, Priya. "Still have your prototype? Still think it's the future. Let's build." 3 short replies. 3 doors kicked wide open. We met on a Sunday afternoon in a gritty, industrial-style cafe. Scratched tables, old brick walls, 0 pretenses. No suits, no laptops, just 4 people huddled around overpriced coffee. It looked casual, harmless. But what we were planning over that worn-out table wasn't a reunion. It was a revolution. I still can't believe they passed you over, Elena said, stirring her tea with mechanical precision. You didn't just hold them together, Mandy. You made them unstoppable. Doesn't matter now, I replied. They handed me $50 and shoved me into tech support. That was their answer. Jason let out a low whistle. I should have seen it coming. You know what Bryce told me before I quit? Some people just look more like they know what they're doing. Priya rolled her eyes. Classic. But we're not here to vent, are we? No, I said, reaching into my bag. We're here to start something. I pulled out a worn leather folder, inside a blueprint, not just for software, for an entire business model. A logistics AI system, yes, but enhanced. Real-time predictive inventory, automated rerouting, procurement optimization, carbon tracking metrics, all wrapped in a modular interface that could plug into any mid-size supply chain. Jason's brows shot up. You've been busy. I never stopped, I said. I knew they'd try to claim it eventually. That's why the real build never touched their servers. Elena leaned in. You're sure it's yours legally? I wrote the core engine before I joined. What they have is a basic install with limited rights. What I kept, that's mine. Priya grinned. Then let's give the industry what Caldwell never deserved. We had no investors, no glass-walled office, no startup buzz, just a busted server rig in Jason's basement, 4 people with a point to prove, and a product that could redefine logistics. We called it Echelon, a system built not just to analyze data, but to anticipate it, one that could detect shortages, reroute shipments, reduce costs, and optimize everything in real time. We worked out of my living room, then Elena's garage. We coded through the night, fueled by cheap takeout and stubborn belief. And slowly, something incredible took shape. By week 4, we had a working prototype. By week 8, a fully operational demo. And by week 10, our first real client. A mid-sized global warehouse network that had been itching to replace its outdated Caldwell system. They didn't blink at our rate. We deployed Echelon on week 10. Within 48 hours, their logistics flow was running 25% faster. But it was week 12 that changed the game. In week 12, the headlines hit. Caldwell Systems faces client exodus after critical software failures. I recognized the names immediately. 3 of their biggest clients, ones I had personally onboarded during my AI rebuild, were pulling out. All 3 were now talking to us. Apparently, Bryce had tried to streamline some of the back-end logic in my old system. Instead, he fractured the load balancing algorithm, breaking delivery flows across multiple regions. Operations ground to a halt, orders backed up, customers fumed. They tried patching it, of course, but it was already too late. The industry had spotted the crack, and now it was watching to see how far it would split. That morning, I sat at my little desk in Caldwell's support wing, barely functional, flickering monitor, wires taped down with old masking tape, while chaos exploded just floors above. Emails were flying, meetings were stacked, executives were panicking, and I just sat there, sipping my coffee in complete silence. Because while they were scrambling to salvage a sinking ship, we were already sailing ahead. That evening, I walked into our modest workspace, Jason configuring servers, Elena refining our pitch deck, Priya debugging our UI. I paused in the doorway. Next week, I said, we go public. Priya looked up. As in, press release, full launch, demo, everything. Jason smirked. Bold. Necessary, I replied. The industry needs to see what actual leadership looks like. They also needed to remember the name they tossed aside for $50. Next up is part 6, where Echelon launches, the internet erupts, and the power balance truly begins to shift. Ready? The day our press release dropped, the internet lit up. The headline read, Ex-engineer behind Caldwell's 200-mailer turnaround launches disruptive AI startup. By noon, our inbox was flooded. We've been looking to upgrade. Let's schedule a demo. Is it true your system cut delivery delays by 80%? How soon can we onboard? Meanwhile, back at Caldwell, Things were unraveling. The same coworkers who once averted their eyes when I passed them in the hallway, now they nodded, smiled, whispered. They were starting to connect the dots. Mandy? She built the system. Mandy. She's why we're still in business. Mandy. Why is she in support? By 2 p.m., Bryce called a staff meeting. He stood at the front of the conference room, pale and fidgeting, tapping a marker against the whiteboard. So this whole thing with Mandy's startup? He began, trying to smile. It's overhyped. Nothing we can't compete with. The room stayed quiet. We're still the leader, he insisted. We've got legacy infrastructure, brand recognition, trust. One little platform doesn't change that. I sat in the back, silent. He never once looked at me. But the others did. And in their eyes, I could see it. Realization. They remembered who stayed late, who fixed bugs during holidays, who built the framework that saved this company from bankruptcy. It wasn't Bryce. It was me. That afternoon, Elena scheduled a live demo with one of Caldwell's largest legacy clients, a food logistics chain with over 300,000 weekly shipments. Their CTO called us personally. We heard Mandy's behind this, he said. She's the reason we stuck with Caldwell as long as we did. Now we want to follow the real talent. I didn't gloat, because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about correcting the record. Bryce scrambled to contain the fallout. He fired off emails to clients, hosted a shaky transparency webinar where he fumbled through buzzwords and vague promises. Jason, watching the live stream from our workspace, just shook his head. He doesn't even understand the logic behind the system. Priya smirked. Of course not. He was too busy schmoozing investors while we were writing neural pathways from scratch. By the next morning, 3 more Caldwell clients had walked. 2 came straight to us. The third said they were exploring options, which meant waiting to see if the rumors were true. So we showed them. Elena hired a videographer. We dropped a demo reel. Sleek, data-driven, no fluff. Real-time visuals, testimonial quotes, operations data showing cost cuts, faster delivery times, cleaner interfaces. We launched it Wednesday morning. By that evening, it had 80,000 views. And then came the investor call, quarterly updates, Caldwell's big moment to shine. Instead, it was a slow, public meltdown. Slide 1, client retention dropped. Slide 2, revenue down 14% despite market expansion. Slide 3, projections revised downward. Then the question came, the one no one wanted to ask out loud. Is it true your former engineer, Mandy Lee, built the core AI behind Caldwell's turnaround? Lawson's screen froze a beat too long. He forced a tight smile. Mandy contributed to early frameworks, sure, but the platform is entirely ours. Then another voice. So why is her system outperforming yours, with fewer resources? Silence. Then, no further comments. The call ended early. By Thursday morning, Caldwell's stock had dropped 8%. Elena messaged me. It's starting. And it was. The truth was out. Not because I shouted it, but because the results spoke for themselves. By Friday, the press caught up. Engineer who saved Caldwell launches rival platform, and it's winning. $50 bonus? Industry reacts to insult behind a billion-dollar exit. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. The headline told the story better than I ever could. Caldwell's own employees started sending anonymous messages. Just wanted you to know, most of us knew it was your system. They're panicking upstairs. Bryce is in meetings all day trying to rebuild trust. If you're hiring, I'm interested. Jason joked about creating a special inbox. Resumes Echelon.ai. By week's end, it wasn't a rivalry anymore. It was a reckoning. Our inbox was flooded with investor interest. One VC firm opened with, "We'd like to be part of the story Caldwell failed to tell." We weren't chasing them. They were coming to us. That night, I stood by the same window where it all began. The one in the dusty support office. The room they shoved me into. The desk with the flickering screen. I remembered holding that crumpled $50 in my hand. They thought I'd stay quiet, thought I'd just take what I was given and disappear. But they were wrong, because some people don't fight back with noise. They fight back by building something better. Bryce was still director. But I was now founder, CEO, architect of the platform reshaping the very industry he tried to gatekeep. Funny how that works. They gave me $50 and a reason, and I turned it into a revolution. 6 months later, we were everywhere. Echelon had signed 12 enterprise clients. We had doubled our engineering team. And investors? Fighting for a seat at our next round. But none of that compared to the email that popped into my inbox one quiet Tuesday. Subject line: coffee? It was from Bryce. Hey, Mandy, congrats on everything. Big fan of what you're doing with Echelon. Would love to grab a coffee and catch up. Got some ideas I'd love to run by you. Maybe we could even talk partnership? I stared at it for a moment. Then I hit reply. Hi, Bryce. Appreciate the note. Unfortunately, I'm booked out indefinitely, and I don't do partnerships with people who needed me to shrink so they could look bigger. No send-off, no smiley face. Just the closure he never gave me, and the respect I no longer needed. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. Not really. This was about choice. The choice to rise instead of react, to rebuild instead of beg, to outgrow instead of outshout. Some people look for recognition. Others create results so undeniable they no longer need it. I wasn't the one with the title at the old company anymore. I didn't need it. Because now I owned the future they once tried to write without me, and all it cost them was $50.